What are you up to right now, pretty much?
I am currently finishing the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm way ahead of the schedule because the speech is not for another week.
No way.
As a producer, writer, and entrepreneur, he invites his collaborators to embrace the science of story. He is co-founder of Attention Different, a company dedicated to ADHD advocacy, mental health education, and creative content pertaining to ADHD. He has, as I said, a TEDx talk called Attention Different, Not Deficit, with over 3 million views. They weren't all me. And has been interviewed on a slew of podcasts and entertainment channels. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Tonti.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just realized a classic ADHD moment. I gotta plug my laptop in. But while I'm doing that, I would love to offer you guys just a soupçon and a amuse-bouche of my activities in New Orleans since moving there. It doesn't always work. So first, oh my gosh, we're all the way, look at this. Don't look. This is a huge journey we're going on. Nobody but you knows. First and foremost, Richard Boleslavsky. The only real rules in art are the ones we discover for ourselves. Next, a disclaimer. I am not an expert. I never was. I aim to be, but I'm not there yet. I know a lot about my brain. I'm here to share my experiences with you, and only those of others who offered their unique lived-in experiences to me. I come from an evidence-based, informed perspective. I like to make references to outside sources, and I will do my best to convey accurate information and cite who I am pulling from. Cool? Yeah. Another disclaimer. I could talk for hours, and I mean hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about all things music, from writing to playing to producing, selling, signing, and touring, and one day I will. But for this talk, for this presentation, we are all artists. We are all creatives. We are all professional storytellers. The prologue. It is Monday, March 25th. I'm in Winter Park, Colorado, strapped into a LibTech box knife all-mountain snowboard. The last time I boarded with any regularity, I was 18. As of March 4th, I was 33. This poses a problem unique to lifelong extreme sports junkies. My snowboarder brain is still 18, while my actual physical self is very much 33. I am riding with two new best friends, Rich the EMT and Paige the teacher and art therapist. To make matters more dangerous, we are all the same skill level, which is high, very high, the highest actually. The three of us are very skilled and maybe, probably, definitely high. And wouldn't you know it, turns out I'd already made a big mistake that day, but hours earlier. It was a POW day, it was overcast and snowing. Snowboard addicts get real hype on a days like these. The goggles I had impulsively grabbed in the usual ADHD adult, quick, get out of the house, we're so effing late fashion, were charcoal black. Back on the mountain at almost 12,000 feet, I couldn't clearly see the ground. We take off on run number 4. I traveled about 20 feet and going maybe 10 miles an hour when the ground suddenly gave way. There was a 4 to 6 foot drop right in front of me, and I didn't see it at all. I fell flat on my chest, arms outstretched. I knew my shoulder was out of its socket the moment I hit the snow. First of all, you can hear it, which is gross and awful. But beyond that, you just know. I also knew that from this moment forward, I would be entering into what a fellow meditator, Brother Cameron, calls the pain cave. Wall-to-wall discomfort with only a sliver of light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. It was 20 minutes before they strapped me into a sled, sat upright and facing up the mountain. My adrenaline was beginning to wear off, and fast. The pain jumped from a casual 4 out of 10 to a screaming 8 out of 10. Dislocations are unique. The pain continues to increase up until the point of reconnecting the shoulder. That steady exponential increase in pain and discomfort is suffocating. I've been here before though. A number of times, actually. Not proud, but this was the fifth or sixth dislocation on the same shoulder, and the last time I got an MRI was after dislocation number 3. What made this dislocation distinct from the others was something I had picked up 5 years ago and have been practicing ever since, though. Breathwork and meditation. One of the original branches of yoga, pranayama. Thank you, Eben, my teacher. I start with some breath of fire, and then shift into kumbhaka, which is square breathing. Hold. Hold. And then move into a healthy dose of bellows breath. After a couple cycles of this, the pain disappeared and was replaced by peace and gratitude. I smiled, time slowed. I watched the snow and pine trees dart past me as the snowmobile carried on down mountain. An extremely present thought entered my consciousness in the space created by pranayama. How lucky am I to have the kind of experience, skill, wisdom, and privilege to get to travel to places like these, strap myself to a plank of wood, and hurl myself down a mountain at 50 to 60 miles an hour. Waheguru gratitude! For those who are interested and curious, Waheguru is wow teacher. Wow teacher, gratitude. It only lasted about 2 minutes. But when the pain is that extreme, 2 minutes feels like 20 in a really important way, you dig? It would be well over an hour from the point of injury at the top of the mountain until finally getting x-rayed. Resetting the shoulder only took about 12 seconds. Upon leaving the hospital, I told Rich and Paige about the breath work. Rich, the EMT, stopped in his tracks. Wait, you were able to clear out all the pain from a fully dislocated shoulder twice and for minutes at a time? That is seriously powerful stuff, man. Impressive. Frankly, I hadn't considered it like that. And to be one step more transparent, I fully gave up after the second breathwork attempt. By the time I made it to the emergency center, I was unhinged, loudly moaning, groaning, and plenty of soft crying. I was convinced I would never make it out of the pain cave. As an EMT, Rich has seen all kinds of trauma and witnessed folks in all manners of pain. What is critically important immediately after a major injury is to counter the mind's natural response to go into shock. Our survival system ramps up into overdrive. Neurotransmitters explode like fireworks. An endocrine system floods our brain with adrenaline and cortisol. We become desperate to manage the pain, but we forget that at the core of pain management is energy management. Everyone here is old enough to have seen, heard, or read something discussing, debating, celebrating, or selling time management. For the next hour or 40 minutes, I want you to throw all of that out and a few other conventional wisdoms too, because this afternoon, I will be taking you on a neurodivergence guided tour of the creative universe. It is divided into 5 parts, but only 3 acts, and right this very moment, we are transitioning from prologue into Act 1. Act 1, energy management, build your practice. Even before the creation of the modern assembly line, that was cool. Our Western industrialized societies chose to consider, study, and interact with productivity on a time continuum. We are expected to conform to an overly structured, time-based, time-bound socioeconomic culture that strives to maximize efficiency at any cost, even at the health and happiness of the very members who make up said culture. The cult of productivity is toxic. We've all heard of grind set, grit, the hustle. This flavor of toxic productivity is intricately and inextricably linked to time management. As neurodivergents and creatives, we forge a different relationship to time, and especially to time constraints. Creative pursuits are often hamstrung by the confines of time. At our highest level of creativity, though, all concepts of time dissolve. They disappear. They melt away. This is flow. Well, it's one of the major facets of entering a flow state. In an article for the scientific journal Nature Communications titled A Computational Theory of the Subjective Experience of Flow, people are trying to make math problems out of flow. David Melnikoff, Ryan Carlson, and Paul Stillman offer that flow enhances learning and academic achievement, boosts productivity, fosters artistic talent, improves objective measures of athletic skill, and promotes subjective well-being. Furthermore, positive affect has been found to increase with the amount of flow experienced during the workday, and the absence of flow has been linked to depression. If flow is achieved through the conscious engagement and dedicated management of the task at hand, not an amount of time, then it is clearly more important to prioritize our energy management over time management. Okay, Yeah, let's define it. Energy management is our ability to be aware of and respond effectively to the constant shifts in our mental, physical, and emotional energy. A shoulder dislocation is an extreme example. But we all face moments, small and large, of discomfort, frustration, or distress on a daily basis. Our brain misinterprets and exaggerates these pain receptor signals, and the irony? Well, it's hella ironic that societally and primatologically we learn and are even taught to prioritize comfort over discomfort, when in order to work through the pain, we ultimately lean into discomfort and face it head on. So, the stress curve suggests that performance increases with mental arousal, read stress, but only up to a point. When an individual's level of stress is too low or too high, their performance deteriorates. This means too little anxiety, pressure, and stress, and we are unproductive. We're bored. Too much stress, anxiety, pressure, and our performance is impaired. I love all these graphs, but I do love this one particularly. This one is so cute. But this one, we know burnout. I've never heard of bore out. That's so ADHD shit, right? Like I burn out and I bore out, sometimes in the same hour. To be clear, we are not promoting a life without structure, boundaryless. Structure is good, and please, you can trust that when it's coming from an ADHDer. We tend to hate structure, but the healthiest and happiest of us learn to engage in the balancing act regarding structure versus flexibility and spontaneity. Without any structure, we flounder. But if habits and routines become too rigid and immovable, we also run the risk of stymieing our creative flow. What's more, creatives and neurodivergent folks often struggle with consistency when it comes to habits and routines. For this goober right here to use the word struggle is still too kind. I'm not sure that I've ever held a single habit or routine for one whole calendar year. Deadass. Stop shaming yourself. Hold on tightly to your desire to create and your commitment to living creatively, but let go lightly of the need to be perfect day in and day out, or the need to have every single thing scheduled down to the minute. Robert Sapolsky is a professor of human behavioral biology at Stanford University and is the author of a book which I quite erroneously refer to as my Bible. The book is called Behave, and I want to read just a footnote from a section called The Frontal Cortex and Its Relationship with the Limbic System, if you'll have me. Consider individuals with repressive personalities. Such individuals have highly regimented affect and behavior. They are not emotionally expressive and aren't great at reading emotions in others. They like ordered, structured, predictable lives, can tell you what they're having for dinner a week from Thursday, and complete everything on time. And they have elevated metabolism in the frontal cortex and elevated circulating levels of stress hormones, showing that it can be enormously stressful to construct a world in which nothing stressful ever occurs. Manage your energy, not your time. Okay, but now let's bring time back into the discussion, here towards the end of Act 1. Look, we live in a world where time awareness is necessary. Yes, be aware of time, and yes, do carve out blocks of time for deeply creative pursuits. However, schedule your priorities based on your energy levels and not arbitrarily based on time. The greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world he didn't exist. And the question, how much time do I have, is the greatest trick we ever played on ourselves. Try this. Overlay times of the day, your working hours, with your ultradian rhythms. What the F are those? Don't worry, I got you. In chronobiology, patterns of biological variation occurring on cycles less than 24 hours are known as ultradian rhythms. In contrast, circadian rhythms, diurnal rhythm, complete one cycle daily, while infradian rhythms, such as the menstrual cycle, have periods longer than a day. Our ultradian rhythms follow 90 to 120-minute cycles. Track your energy levels throughout the day. Are you more of a morning person or a night owl? Show of hands. Where are our morning people? Okay, where are our night owls? I love you for the next one. There's the next group, I love you. Where are our neither? That is my co-founder and partner, Aaron Smith, as well. I love you, Aaron. He's a neither. When scheduling your priorities based on energy, what emerges is a more natural schedule anchored to your lifestyle and day-to-day responsibilities. When cultivating spaces for creative work and reaching flow states, we need to allow for flexibility and variability. I'm the type of person who seeks out cafes and dive bars to work. They're full of regular-ass people and chatter and white noise and energy and life. My therapist is the type of person who seeks out libraries. They're quiet, they're often aesthetically pleasing, especially when they're on campus. They inspire focus, reverence, and reflection. Neither of us can stand to do work from home. We can and we will if we must, but folks like Max and I need, that's my therapist, folks like Max and I need to change our environment in order to build up the motivation to create. For others still, a change in environment may mean self-isolating for a stretch of time. Limit disruptions and distractions. Set your phone in another room. Turn it on Do Not Disturb, focus mode, or airplane mode. When I go to the gym, or if I've got a particularly high-stakes project to work on, say, I don't know, this keynote address? I built a custom focus mode called Nope, in all caps. And I even made the icon for it a flame to give that particular boundary some teeth. Use noise-canceling headphones. Avoid switching from one task to another. Instead, try to single task. It's not the action itself, it is the opportunity cost of the total behavior. Multitasking makes us less efficient due to lag effects in task switching. Those lag effects are an opportunity cost on the decision to multitask. Okay, I know I'm not supposed to influence the Q&A or whatever, but please someone ask me later about energy management as it pertains to the opportunity cost of substance use. But here I am getting ahead of myself. Let's dial it back a bit and dive into some definitions. Creativity. What is it? WTF is it? What it is? Well, Carolyn Gregoire and Scott Barry Kaufman, PhD, the rad authors of Wired to Create, Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind, were inspired to write the book after collaborating on an article Carolyn wrote for the Huffington Post back in 2017. In it, she highlights 18 things that creatives do differently, and here is the original list. Cool? At Attention Different, that's our company, we're focusing all of our research and discussion on adulting with ADHD. For our series called ADHD Adulting Fireside Chats, the first one was around a campfire in my backyard. We explore ADHD life in 3 buckets: energy management, relationships, and identity. For today's address, I've gone through the trouble of sorting Carolyn's list into our 3 buckets. Since we're still in that first bucket, let's briefly explore some other ways in which energy management and creativity dance together. So here we have, make time for mindfulness. They work the hours that work for them. Lose track. You can read. They work the hours that work for them. Highly creative individuals will often figure out what time it is that their minds start firing up and structure their days accordingly. I am a morning person, as I said before, but that still does not mean that I am the most creative in the morning. It's just when I'm the most creative most consistently. Yeah? Lose track of time, flow state. We've touched on it, but flow is a mental state when an individual transcends conscious thought to reach a heightened state of effortless concentration and calmness. When someone is in this state, they're particularly immune to any internal or external pressures and distractions that could hinder their performance. The flow state requires a match between your skill set and the task or activity you're engaged in. Embrace the discomfort. It may lead to flow. Seek out new experiences. ADHDers are novelty seekers. Openness to experience is consistently the strongest predictor of creative achievement. Intellectual curiosity, thrill-seeking, openness to your emotions, openness to fantasy. The thing that brings them all together is a drive for cognitive and behavioral exploration of the world, your inner world and your outer world. We are all artists, we are all creatives, we are all professional storytellers. That means on some level we are all human behavioral biologists, and you can tell your former science professor I said that. Daydreaming and mind wandering, creative incubation. Daydreaming can lead to sudden connections and insights because it's related to our ability to recall information in the face of distractions. Did you hear that? It is based on our ability to recall information in the face of distractions. This is super cool for ADHDers to know, all right? That there's a world in which simultaneously you can be distracted and have a really fresh, cool thought. Take risks. Creativity is the act of making something from nothing. It requires making public those bets first placed by imagination. This is not a job for the timid. Time wasted, reputation tarnished, money not well spent, these are all byproducts of creativity gone awry. Take risks. It's a risky biz. I touched on breathwork and meditation at the top, but I want to spend a little more time with that and highlight the scientific process involved, if you'll have me. It doesn't really matter if it's 5, 10, 15, 30, or even 90 minutes of pranayama. What matters is that we are choosing to engage with the second of only 2 collections of pacemaker neurons in our body. The first set of pacemaker neurons are in our heart. You may have heard this, right? Pacemakers. The second is in our brainstem. The first helps the heart send information to and receive instructions from the brain, while the second set is anchored to our lungs and our breath. We have trillions of neurotransmitters, y'all, up in here. There are roughly 8,000 pacemaker neurons that control essentially our breath and our emotions connected to breath. That's nuts, with a Z. The lungs and the brain need this communication pathway so that the lungs can tell the brain, hey, here is the current balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body right now. And the brain then interprets what the context might be for this kind of breathing and produces either a sympathetic or a parasympathetic response. Our sympathetic nervous system carries signals that put our bodies on alert, while our parasympathetic system carries signals that relax us and calm us down. By practicing breath work on a regular basis, what we are functionally doing is taking back the reins on our brain and body's fear response. We use our breath to activate a fear response within us. Then sit in that discomfort, then activate a calming response. And we do this over and over again until we gain more and more authority over our brains and our bodies. We are now coming to the end of Act 1 and are entering the transition between Act 1 and Act 2, from energy management into relationships. And for this transition, I have, you look at that little hint, I have brought with me perhaps the most profound example of the interplay between energy management and relationships. You guys, from Paul Spellings and Stephen Tonti, yours truly, the introvert-extrovert Punnett square. A best friend of mine and I, as Paul, came up with this when we were in high school. We were certainly neither the first nor the only people to have thought about extroverts and introverts in this way, but it was a pretty big epiphany at 17. What we are after here is a better, more nuanced understanding of where and how we recharge our batteries. Introverted introverts get their greatest recharge alone. Extroverted extroverts get their greatest recharge when socializing. Okay, some off-the-cuff stuff, my type 5. So, extroverted extroverts, they get more energy than they expel when socializing, right? That's the concept. I'm an extroverted extrovert, if it's not obvious. I get more battery recharge than I give off, right, when I'm socializing. When I am alone, it doesn't mean I can't be alone. No, I meditate for like 90 minutes, right? My eyes shut. But I have to do a lot of work to charge my battery alone. Right? I have to do 90 minutes of breath work, right? I expend more energy when I'm alone than I gain, unless I focus, right? For introverted introverts, it's quite the opposite. They expend so much energy when socializing. They don't get enough of a battery recharge. That's why friends of yours, maybe you yourself, you have here's time again, you have a little time limit, right? There's a point at which the energy's gone, right? So, and when they are alone, the battery recharges much more fully, right? Unencumbered by the pressures to socialize, yes? Extroverted introverts are, I think, and this is we'll see how this is, maybe a little controversial. I think we all grow into this. I think the vast majority of us grow into this, and especially in a highly socialized, a species, but also highly socialized culture. As we mature, I think we respect and understand that it's a little bit of both, right? We gotta turn it on sometimes, turn it off sometimes. For introverted extroverts, they're lying. So, Act 2, relationship. I'm joking, they're not lying, it's just the opposite. Okay, so we have established that energy management and relationships are intimately intertwined, but the relationships bucket is a big bucket, and we've got a lot more ground to cover. I want to move on to 2 more foundational questions we need to ask ourselves regarding relationships. What am I responsible for? And what are my boundaries? At the 2022 annual ADHD conference, I attended a lecture by Melissa Orlov. Melissa, if you're out there, I love you, girl, you rockin'. Author of The ADHD Effect on Marriage, Understand and Rebuild Your Relationship in 6 Steps. It was such an illuminating and impactful presentation, but 2 slides in particular stuck with me above the rest. Gottman's circles of responsibility are so clear. You see my sticky place? Gottman's circle of responsibility are so clear, so clean, so accessible, and digestible. Melissa gave extra special attention to 2 elements in particular that we are not responsible for and called them the sticky place. We are not responsible for other people's actions or the consequences of other people's actions. For someone like me, an ADHD adult empath with perfectionist, people-pleasing tendencies, this is huge. Melissa goes on to offer 2 parallel truths connected to the sticky place. Number 1, you can't always have someone else do it and have it done your way. And number 2, even funnier, you can't have too much done by someone else and have them be happy about it. These were offered by Ari Tuckman, actually, who's a writing partner of Melissa's. As creatives who intend to build lifelong careers in the arts, investing in good relationships, positive and productive collaborations, is a prerequisite towards your ultimate success. Good relationships means good boundaries. According to Gottman, transparency and positive moral certainty are required to build trust in a relationship. Melissa takes this one step further, offering that boundaries are not binary. They exist on a scale of intensity. The scale comes from the boundary boss, Terry Cole. This slide is the one that I refer back to every day. Truly, as a career creative producer, I am working on multiple projects at various stages of production, from ideation to sale and distribution. I call this my garden of intellectual property, and I tend to it every day. While tending to my garden of IP, I have to track and manage and pay reverence to the preferences, desires, and deal breakers of countless artists and collaborators. These are my children. This would be impossible and untenable if I didn't also know my own preferences, desires, and deal breakers. Let's take these founding tenets of building positive relationships and see how they stack up with those creative traits from Carolyn. I'll switch in a second, but I just want to go through these. Preferences, partial to no one option over another. No demands, everyone has choices. Desires, next level, right? Our most important wishes, dreams, how we envision our life and lives together, right? The most high. Deal breakers, non-negotiable boundaries. Only you know what these are. Helps you understand what you can and can't let go of. Connect the dots. How do these relate to relationships? The ability to see possibilities where others don't. To connect the dots that others might never think to connect. Replace dots with human artists, and you fundamentally understand why gifted producers and creative executives are so highly sought after, with salaries to match. Get out of your own head. The same brain network associated with daydreaming is the brain network associated with theory of mind. Call it the imagination brain network. It allows you to imagine your future self, but it also allows you to imagine what someone else is thinking. Atticus Finch, y'all. A mile in someone else's shoes. Observe everything. Creatives see possibilities everywhere and are constantly taking in information that becomes fodder for creative expression. I have lost track of the number of times I said yes to some activity or event or adventure seemingly unconnected from my career or ultimate passion, only to find that the relationships forged and experiences I had with others contributed both indirectly and directly to my creative professional life. People watch. Creative types often love to people watch. In some ADHD coaching circles, we call this social spy when we're working with younglings. Be a social spy. And they may generate some of their best ideas from this, right? Okay, Herbie Hancock's Watermelon Man. We're at Berklee, we know it, right? Watermelon Man. All right, Herbie Hancock reportedly wrote that in Chicago when he heard a man selling watermelons, and the cart on the cobblestones beat out the rhythm that he ended up writing the song in, okay? It happened every day. He sold watermelons every day. Herbie Hancock. Watermelon Man. Legend has it, that is the tone in which the Watermelon Man said Watermelon Man. Watermelon Man. Watermelon Man. Watermelon Man. I remember the cry of the Watermelon Man making the rounds through the back streets and alleys of Chicago. The wheels of his wagon beat out the rhythm on the cobblestones. That was Herbie. A study recently published in the journal Psychology of Aesthetics, Creativity, and the Arts showed that musicians, including orchestra musicians, music teachers, and soloists, exhibit a high sensitivity and responsiveness to artistic beauty. This is surround yourself with beauty. A relationship to the self. Take time for solitude. One must overcome the fear or embrace the discomfort of being alone. We need to give ourselves the time alone to simply allow our minds to wander. You need to get in touch with that inner monologue to be able to express it. This last one is massively important, often overlooked, and really, really challenging for yours truly. Solitude is not the absence of a relationship or relating to someone. Taking solitude is an act of relating directly to yourself. The story I'm going to share now is neither happy nor sad. It's both. And it's more. So much more. Happy and sad are just two English words that both native English speakers and non-native English speakers use to capture a feeling. They also happen to be two of the 6 types of basic emotion: happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust. We're past that. UC Berkeley published the results of a 2017 study in which they used novel statistical models to analyze responses of more than 800 men and women to over 2,000 emotionally evocative video clips. Berkeley researchers identified 27 distinct categories of emotion. Don't believe it, here they are. This is, I believe, Plutchik's Wheel of Emotion. You notice the best part? Happiness and sadness didn't make the list. They used more specific and exacting English words, and these emotions live on a smooth gradient, counter to the notion that each emotional state is an island. It's my favorite version of it. In 2018, I was engaged to the absolute love of my life. We both worked in film. We had moved from New York to Los Angeles, trading the concrete jungle for the sand, surf, and palms. We got a dog. We made a home together. And while we didn't fully know it at the time, we were building our future together on a really shaky foundation. One that would eventually give way and break. We had very clear preferences and desires, and were aligned on just about every one. This wasn't the case when it came to our deal breakers. No matter how hard we worked at it, and I promise y'all, we worked harder and for longer than most. 1 or 2 deal breakers each just never lined up. The romantic relationship did eventually dissolve during COVID lockdown. Any COVID cliches? Relationships ended? They either ended or they got stronger. So I am beyond grateful, proud actually, to share that we put in the extra work to consciously uncouple. It prolonged the actual breakup, but to steal the phrase off a fantastic movie title, we were breaking upwards. We remain best friends, soulmates, and collaborators to this day because of the work that we did. Wahe Guru gratitude. When the romantic chapter of our relationship officially ended, an incredible amount of weight was lifted. The pressure that I put on myself in comparison to my friends who were having children, building families, and advancing in their careers was overwhelming and intense. I tried on their version of a grown-up's costume, but it didn't fit. I no longer felt the struggle to perform for my partner this manufactured, copy-pasted adult behavior. I still wanted to continue growing, expanding, evolving, build a family, start a company, start many companies. I wanted to mature into the powerful, inspiring, thought-provoking, compassionate, kind, and considerate adult Stephen that I knew I could be. So I turned inward, and somewhere, some part of my psyche asked, when was the last time in your life that you were perceived as purely excellent, no additional judgment? What was I doing when people saw me excelling and said, wow, look at you? How are you doing that? Answer, snowboarding and drums. That's right, back to my teenage self. I didn't know it then, but I was about to regress to progress. It continues to delight and spook me every time the screenwriter of my life decides to stop me mid-step and teach me something. I had one foot on the sidewalk, the other planted on the front lawn of a new best friend named Dave. And it was here that epiphany struck. I am literally too old for this shit. You see, in an effort to go back to my roots once back in New Orleans, I decided to hurl myself at any chance to play music. I had gone to Dave's house many nights in a row to smoke and drink and jam for hours. He was a working actor and had made enough money to buy a house. All the cool art kids were there. It was bliss, it was healing, it was Warhol's East Village loft. It was an atomic bomb of dopamine. And it was so 23-year-old me. Right? That clip at the top, that's Dave's house. Another best friend and business partner, Nick, sometimes refers to epiphany as connecting schemas. And I know he's onto something because it genuinely feels like connecting 2 power cables together inside your brain. At just past 3 a.m. on a Tuesday or Wednesday, read a school night, I took one step off of Dave's lawn and it hit me. I am literally too old for this shit. I laughed, like a lot, out loud in the street at 3 a.m. I looked over my shoulder back at Dave's and I smiled. I broke free from something on the sidewalk that morning. I wasn't saying goodbye forever to jam sessions, but suddenly this behavior was taking more energy than it was giving. The opportunity cost had inverted as had my entire list of priorities. I was fed up. I was tired of being tired. I was fed up with this unhinged style of energy management I had stumbled and arrived at. And you guys, I'm not a professional musician. The quote at the very top of this lecture is by Richard Boleslavsky, one of the progenitors of modern acting and performance. I alluded to another quote attributed to Richard just a moment ago when I said I was fed up. Once an individual is fed up, the real work can begin. If Boleslavsky actually said this, he may have been pulling from the philosophies held by Tibetan Buddhist monks or from absurdist authors of the age such as Albert Camus, and his insistence on the vitalizing power of despair. Personally, the Tibetan concept of Ye Tang Che captures this sentiment best. The Ye part means totally, completely, and the rest of it means exhausted. Altogether, Ye Tang Che, sorry for the pronunciation, means totally tired out. We might say totally fed up. It describes an experience of complete hopelessness, of completely giving up hope. This is an important point. This is the beginning of the beginning. Without giving up hope that there's somewhere better to be, that there's someone better to be, we will never relax with where or who we are. Embrace the discomfort. We determine what is and what isn't creative relationally. Something must be shared and valued before it is judged to be creative or not. However, to be creative, we must first develop an intimate relationship with the self. Reconnecting with ourselves is the concrete foundation. The more that we know about ourselves, the firmer the ground we stand on before we leap for the stars. In that moment on the sidewalk, I remembered the mission. I laugh because catharsis is sometimes funny, y'all. I laugh because this passionate, driven, grateful, and thrilled part of me had been there all along, and somehow I just bumped into him right there in the street. There I stood and heard myself say to myself, you're trying to do big stuff. And when you try to do big stuff gonna happen to you. Some of it will suck. Some of it will be great. Failure is just the other side of success. For a true adventure, both must be possible. That's Brian Milton. I was afraid of stepping up to the level of responsibility I had created for myself, out of an intense desire spanning back decades. But I started to shed the layers of expectation, the comparisons to others, and the obsession with how am I spending my time? The question became, how am I recharging my energy? How and where and with whom am I spending my energy? What are the sources of my energy? Where are the energy vampires in my life? You see how suddenly I was combining the forces of energy management and relationships with myself? I was fed up. And it is here that we transition into our last act, Act 3. Oh my gosh. Identity. Catharsis, identity. Nobody but you knows. In March of 2013, I gave a speech for TEDx CMU. There it is. In March of 2013, I gave a speech for TEDx CMU called Attention Different, Not Deficit, and it went viral, like 3 million views viral. It sparked a global conversation about radical acceptance within our ADHD community, and in 2014, I met Aaron Smith, an ADHD brother-in-arms, well on his way to becoming a licensed clinician and certified ADHD coach. The two of us stood outside of a bar in New Orleans and took turns sharing our utter frustration with the way our complex mental condition had been treated up to that point. We were both carrying the same poetic fury surrounding the ongoing mistreatment of our neurodivergent peers. We were livid. We were what? Fed up! We were what? Fed up! We were fed up! So that night we started a company. One with a ferocious call to action. We are not disordered. Our brains are merely wired differently. We believe that society must ultimately adapt to our unique brain wiring, not the other way around. We demand acceptance over tolerance. Where are my Queer Eye fans? Come on, where are my queer girl? But I haven't yet captured for you just how massive a relational shift occurred that night. I hadn't traveled to that 2014 CHAD conference alone. I had protection. I was packing some serious heat, you guys. I brought my mom. Why? I had just recently, for the first time in my life, been publicly decried and lambasted on Twitter for sentiments that I shared in that TEDx talk. A person who shall remain nameless called me out, and I will never forget exactly what they said verbatim. Soft-headed platitudes delivered to a confirmation-biased audience do not an expert make. Y'all, that is a sick burn. Come on, where's the laughter? Like, damn, that's sick. That is some hateful poetry in motion. Seriously. The sentence is so well constructed, I was terrified. And what's worse is that I was fairly confident why this person was livid with me. Near the end of that TEDx talk, I took a position on medicating kids, teens, and young adults, which I regretted only a few months later on the day that I learned my video started going viral. The morning I saw the angry tweet, I had my best friend Logan write an olive branch email. He's really good at it. I tweaked it to put it in my own voice and hit send. The email was conciliatory. I was excited. I was friendly and even curious. I hoped we could be best friends. The email I got back made it clear that would never happen. It was pure vitriol. This human dissected my entire speech line by line, said awful things about me and my philosophies. It was pages long. My favorite line is also the shortest. If you had taken more science classes, maybe you'd have been more rational and responsible. I was at a conservatory drama program. An asinine thing to say. Do your research. What finally set me off was when this person questioned my choice to quote Robin Williams, a la Our Little Sparks of Madness. They missed the point entirely and instead defended that Robin was an addict and self-medicating his condition with cocaine and alcohol. They also suggested that he was bipolar and not ADHD. We can't know this. We could never know without some sort of formal diagnosis, but I tend to disagree with that assessment as well. I decided to cut this person out of my life completely. Out of absolute rage at their unjust comments and disgusting behavior, I went to find the original quote from Robin. And what I found was even better than I ever could have imagined. Before I play this next clip, you guys, I want to be clear about the context. This is Robin Williams at the top of his young, beautiful life. He is 1978, it's at the Roxy, and I gotta tell you, I highly recommend you go watch this. It is unhinged. He is nuts with a Z. It is Robin full energy and probably on drugs. But the things he does with a theater space are utterly unique to him and brilliant. Is genius, right? The clip you're about to watch is a point where he, I believe, is giving a nod to Mel Brooks' 2,000-year-old man. He comes on stage wearing a new cloak and like these weird little things and glasses, and he plays this really old guy on a rooftop who's teaching the youth, some youngins, about what it was in the past, right? So he's playing a character. And this is where we get the Little Sparks of Madness quote in its entirety. Oh, a disclaimer, forgive me, and for all of those out there in the world on the internet, this is not the most PC. It's 1978 and it's Robin Williams, but nothing should be so triggering. It's a little bit of, some blue humor, right?
You, from me to you, you got to be crazy. You know what I'm talking about? Full goose bozo. Because what is reality? If you need a seat on the bus, you have to go, excuse me. Now, do it to you. Yeah, well, messes them up. Sometimes, if they call for your taxes, go. That should put them aside for a day or two. Got to be crazy. You've got to. Because madness is the only way I've stayed alive. Used to be a comedian. Used to a long time ago. It's true. There are some good memories. It's too late now for that. Can't even jumpstart the sucker. But it doesn't matter, though. I can gum you to death. I'm being grotesque, but you've got to be. You see what I mean? You got to be crazy. It's too late to be sane. Too late. You got to go full tilt, bozo. Because you're only given a little spark of madness. And if you lose that, you're nothing. Don't. From me to you. Don't ever lose that, because it keeps you alive. Because if you lose that, that's my only love. Crazy. Because there's no way any government in the world can handle madness. Because you got to fly above it all. Remember, angels, they have wings because they take themselves lightly.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. So in a way, I ultimately have to thank the individual who treated me with so much avarice, irreverence, and ugly dearth of respect. I may never have sought this clip out. I may never have gone back and watched the entire special, which I've done many times. Robin was brilliant, a genius, and overflowing with empathy, an unmatched desire to connect with his audience. He wasn't a poster child for substance abuse. He was one of the greatest neurodivergent creatives humanity has ever known. Robin wasn't just a ray of light in my life. He was the sun itself. Identity, creative traits. I know it says energy management. Don't look at that. Yeah, so this is identity, creative traits. Turn life's obstacles around. You guys have all heard of PTSD or CPTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress. Well, there's something new as recently as 1995. Post-traumatic growth, or PTG. First developed in the mid-90s by Tedeschi and Calhoun, defined as a positive psychological change experienced as a result of the struggle with trauma or highly challenging situations. This phenomenon should be considered not as an alternative, but as a parallel process with respect to negative psychological consequences. Kadri. What's happened is that their view of the world as a safe place or as a certain type of place has been shattered at some point in their life, causing them to go on the periphery and see things in a new, fresh light, and that's very conducive to creativity. Ask the big questions. Whether through intense conversation or solitary mind wandering, creatives look at the world around them and want to know why and how it is the way it is. View all of life as an opportunity for self-expression. Creativity is nothing more than an individual expression of your needs, desires, and uniqueness. Everybody here watch RuPaul? Everybody here knows about her charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. Spell it at home. Follow the true passion. Creative people tend to be intrinsically motivated, meaning that they're motivated to act from some internal desire rather than a desire for external reward or recognition. Shake things up. Diversity of experience. Creatives like to shake things up, experience new things, and avoid anything that makes life more monotonous or mundane. Creative people have more diversity of experiences, and habit is the killer of diversity of experience. Wrap that in your head. So, epilogue, the summary, or in closing. So I'm going to end, weirdly, with an anonymous quote. And I love that it's anonymous. This came from a study on creativity, and I'm sure it came from somebody in a panel or a town hall or something, but it's just so perfect. And I again love that we don't know who said it. The person who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The person who walks alone is likely to discover places that no one has ever been before. Creativity in living is not without its attendant difficulties. For peculiarity breeds contempt. And the unfortunate thing about being ahead of your time is that when people finally realize you were right, they'll say it was obvious all along. You have two choices in life. You can dissolve into the mainstream, or you can be distinct. To be distinct, you must be different. To be different, you must be what no one else but you can be. Nobody but you knows. That's it, y'all. Thank you, guys.
Steve and Tonti, y'all.